Episode 70 of Strange Brow Radio. I'm again your host, Hope Johnson. Thanks for tuning in, sharing, loving the show, and 5-starring it. All that stuff is so helpful. And I know that you know that, so we won't dwell on it. Thank you for listening. Also, thank you to the patrons at patreon.com/Strange Brow Radio. We're going to delve down the Patreon road here in a moment, but I want you to get ready for, I believe, installment number 3, maybe 4 of Ales and Tales. That's what we're doing today with Alex Witcombe, and we have a surprise guest coming up as we're talking. Even surprised little old Alex there. So, more of that in a moment. I will tell you about that, but let's take a second here and talk about Patreon. We'll be right back. Okay, Patreon. Let's talk about it. What's the deal with Strange Brow Radio's Patreon? Well, I don't push it a whole lot because it's up to you whether or not you want to part with your cash. And that's what Patreon's all about. It's about parting with your cash. In this case, $3 or $6. And so what do you get? Well, first of all, if you sign up for patreon.com/Strange Brow Radio, you can just do it for a one-time payment of $3. And there you will download whatever you want, as far as I'm concerned. Get a load of it, look at it for $3. And so, for example, I just downloaded about a 2-hour video webinar that we did about Skinwalker Ranch and Sasquatch portals with author Tom Powell and retired Colonel Dr. John B. Alexander. That's up there. There's also the comprehensive medical report we're calling the Dragoo-Taylor paper. And that is all about the evidence pointing towards the Al Moon knee impressions. It's going to come out when the book's out. There's also an 11-minute audiobook teaser. I put a 5-minute one out regarding the Al Moon Lab, a shared paranormal experiment. So there's 5 more or 6 more additional minutes. Also, there's a members video with the director, a guy by the name of Alan McGargle, who did the Bigfoot Alien Connection, available on Amazon. It also details some of the stranger things that have happened along the way. In Alan's world, this talks about the Al Moon Lab. There's also some exclusive members videos from field expeditions that we've done out and about. There's also, I'm going down the list here, it's kind of obvious. A couple SoundCloud files. There's a tour of Northern State Mental Hospital, and I think that's about over 45 minutes, and there's some EVP sessions in there, and there's a really good couple interviews on here. Episode 58, Kindred Encounters, Part 1 and 2. That is a really good episode, and I know you're going to like that. And then there's all the stuff at Podcastle, at the Manresa Castle. Interviews with Mary Bethune, including some never-before-seen ghost stuff with a SLS camera. There's an interview with Scott Carpenter that I did about the Watcher theory. Again, more field experience stuff. And then one-on-one with Sonia Zohar and Rich Jermu at the pub at Manresa Castle. It just goes on and on and on. Interview with one-on-one with Ron Moorhead at the castle. That's definitely a good one. And then some really offbeat stuff here that we've done along the way here. A little small documentary on the lights phenomena. So for $3 a month, take a look at it. If you don't find anything you like, you can just return it like you would something at the store. You just don't have to renew your membership. So for people that are putting $3 in, they can get all that stuff. And then at the $6 range, I'm doing a little news and review and adding some goodies for people that are paying $6 more. So check it out at patreon.com/Strange Brow Radio. Oh, also coming up here on April 18th and 19th, that's this week, for $4.99, Mysteries of the Elongated Skulls, 1 to 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Go to strangebrowradio.com, click on the Quarantine Webinars tab, and get a free ticket for Marcia K. Moore and researcher Brian Forrester talking about the mystery of the elongated skulls and ancient tech, megalithic structures and such. That's a 3-hour conference, 1 to 4 p.m. You have to have a ticket to get in. We're asking for a donation. The way you do that is go to Marcia's PayPal account and donate $4.99. Suggested donation of $4.99. If you can't donate anything, still come. The tickets are available. All you got to do is strangebrowradio.com. Go to the Quarantine Webinars tab, click that, and it will take you into Zoom, and you will get a code. And if you can donate, information on how to do that via PayPal with Marcia is on there. The day after that, on the 19th, Quantum Bigfoot Language. Ron Moorhead, Scott Nelson, kicking back. And it's going to be a good time because I talked to the guys a couple days ago and just went over how they were doing. And there's some really cool stuff that they're willing to talk about. So you want to be getting a ticket for that. That's $6.99. The way you get that is the same way. Go to strangebrowradio.com, go to the Quarantine Webinars tab, and click the Quantum Bigfoot Language Seminar. And that one you have to have a ticket for. $6.99, 3 hours, 1 to 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, Sunday the 19th. Those are the dates. Just go to strangebrowradio.com and go to the Quarantine Webinars, and you'll see it there. It'll make sense. And you can get a hold of me if it doesn't make sense. strangebrowradio@gmail.com is how you do that. Okay, without further ado, I need a drink. Hallelujah. Let's go to Alex Witcombe and what we call ales and tales. Alex, this is Toad. How you doing, man?
Toad, I'm not doing very well, man.
He's got a touch of the COVID.
No, I've been in like strict quarantine.
Yeah.
I've been kind of like going like a little loopy mental. There's things in the trees and I don't know. I think I'm going feral. I ate the neighbor's cat yesterday.
The Driftwood Man is lost it. That's the sequel to your already demented program. The Driftwood Man has lost it.
It's gone off the deep end of the beach for this boy. No, it's good out. It's good out here. I just spent a really productive day doing gardening and building a greenhouse and planting a whole bunch of seedlings. And oh man, satisfying day. Holy shit. Yeah.
Yeah, is your plan to live off the fat of the land like Jeremiah Johnson?
Oh yeah. I'm gonna get the land nice and fat so I can just suckle on it. Sweet teat.
I'm gonna have to put a graphic content warning on this episode already. I can feel it. Cool, man. Well, we got.
How about you? How are you doing?
We've got ourselves good, man. I think gardening is the thing that's going on. If you're home, you have the chance to catch up on a lot regarding, sitting back and watching Netflix. I'm guilty. We watched a couple of, we went through season 3 of Stranger Things, but then we also been knee deep in the garden as well. And we actually got a greenhouse going. And
right on.
Trying to get a fountain, and the idea behind the pond or the fountain is that everybody loves the sound of the water, right? Especially the trickle sound. And odd note, though, did you know that there was a NASCAR driver by the name of Dick Trickle?
I did not know that.
They're really, yes, and people call in and let me know, email me if I'm speaking out of turn, but I think there was a guy by the name of Dick Trickle. And Dick
Trickle?
Yes.
Wow. I guess if he was just going to go by Richard Trickle, people would have ended up calling him Dick anyway.
Yeah, he just stuck with it.
Yeah. Well, I hope he was a badass on the track.
That's right, and I hope he never...
Yeah.
Oh. Oh my God. I'll keep that line.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's too late. I don't. I'm too lazy to edit this show. So, I mean, if people haven't figured out by episode 70 what they're in for, then I haven't done my job. So,
Yeah, totally. Yeah,
it's
it's all good.
whether or not you're going to stick around for the rest of the show is probably the question.
Oh yeah. Oh
Uh,
yeah.
So yeah, the pond is coming together. I'm trying to make it look like an actual Pacific Northwest log jam, and so
Cool.
it's harder than one thinks, and it all has to do with a big enough pump because you got to have that water kind of gushing. And right now, it's dick trickle all the way, man. It's nothing. it's not. It's not a flowing, gushing creek bed by any means. It's kind of a sad trickle. It's got prostate issues.
Yeah. Oh, poor little pond. Well, is there going to be any remedies? Can you think of any remedies to this?
Well, I think it's going to take a bigger pump.
Bigger pump,
or maybe
bigger
two
hose.
pumps, a bigger hose.
Open up the flow. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, part of what we wanted to do today was take a tour back towards, James and Tony's episode, Into the Tree, and talk a little bit about that one because that was a pretty heavy episode and it went all sorts of places.
Yeah, lots going on.
There's a lot going on, and it's 100% authentic witness testimony, and you can't walk away from it thinking any of this is just coming off of the top of his head. In fact, he got a hold of me after the episode had aired and said, man, I sound like a crazy guy. And I'm like, dude, you don't sound like a crazy guy. Have you listened to the other, 65 episodes before you? Before yours? And so I tried to reassure him. But, it starts off with a Bigfoot story and it ends up in Santeria. And I started thinking about that before you got on the air with me. And I was like, okay, now what are the themes here going on with the supernatural? It never is just, I saw a ghost and that was it. It's always, little dribs and drabs. And it takes time to talk to the witness. It could take years to get this kind of information out of a person. You and I only have the luxury of an hour and a half, maybe 3 hours at the most to do a lot of these unless we do them in series or parts. But as he's going down the line there, the story gets a little bit more, creepy, obviously. And it started making me think of other things that we've spoken about where the road just goes down and down to, once in a while, like when I was on the doing the Bigfoot conference last weekend with all the Squatchers, they were alluding to the rabbit hole opening up for them. And I was like, well, have any of you guys ended up with Pan? And they all went silent.
Oh, yeah.
And nobody knew what I was talking about. I fully, Tim Renner did. I fully expected other people to go, oh, you mean like Cernunnos? You mean like a goat god? Baphomet? Yeah. But I was like, I was hoping that would happen. It didn't happen except for Renner, but it made me wonder with Tony and James whether or not, had I stuck around with that interview, would we end up with Baphomet? Would we end up with Pan? Would we end up kind of with the same? Not that I've had a bunch of Pan stuff happen. I have not. But the fact is that it has happened, and it was just like all the other stuff at Al Moon Lab, and I had to pay attention to it. And you kind of remember the story a little bit, but I'll refresh the audience because I don't think.
Yeah, I actually don't remember the story. I think you told it to me, but refresh my memory too. Yeah.
So we went to a Swedish festival in the little town of Junction City, Oregon. This would have been 2019. And it was a hot summer day. We were going into Eugene for a couple of days. And on our way in or out of town, we stop in this tiny little town. And they have, trolls running around and Vikings and, they're serving able skeevers and all sorts of things. And there was this little gal who had a little tiny booth, a bunch of craft stuff, and she had a bunch of clay ornaments and necklaces and brooches that she
stamped or she carved into them little images. Well, one of them was a fertility god, and I'd never heard of Cernunnos at that time. That's one of the names for Pan. And I was like, well, that's kind of interesting looking there. Like, it was really graphic. And by the way, Cernunnos is a fertility god for a reason. So you can imagine he's not walking around. He's not ashamed of them their parts. And,
no. He's all out.
He's all out. Yeah. And he's definitely not a Dick Trickle type.
No.
No. That's what I need. I need Cernunnos standing over my
there you
jam there.
go. Oh, yeah.
I got to be careful what I'm asking for. Anyway, so I get this brooch, and I put it inside one of my rock boxes. It's got all these precious stones in it, and stuff to like sage and Palo Santo, and I keep it by my bed. And this little thing found a way of I think it came out of the box, and it was sitting by the bed with an acorn sitting next to it.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so if you know anything about this image, if you look into this, right, there is this really prominent acorn that is a part of Cernunnos' crown. And I know I didn't take it out of there, but the other weird part of it is that there's also a bracelet that is called a torque, okay?
Yep.
And Cernunnos is holding this torque in most of all of the things that it's depicted in. And I had a torque that I'd been wearing since I went to Sedona. I didn't even know what it was. I thought it was just a copper, band. But no, it's very specifically looks just like this thing that Cernunnos holds. So there was this torque, there was this acorn, there was this pendant. And I kind of all just went towards this Pan type figure. So that was my connection with it. And it was enough for me to say, okay, something might be here. And then, of course, you get into other people like what Renner's been through or the story of Hellier. It goes back to Pan. What about you? Has it ever gone back to something like that for you? I've never asked.
It has never gone back to Pan or Cernunnos. But the funny thing was, now when did this happen to you?
So this would have been towards the end of summer 2019, fall 2019.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah, probably summerish. Yeah.
Well, interestingly, like I've had it on the brain like these past couple months, and I had never heard of Cernunnos before either. I was going to go down to East Souk in May to do a sculpture, driftwood sculpture down there. And I just wanted something like that, like Pan-like or like, just this like fertility god, natural nature. And all I could think about was Pan. I was like, well, yeah, Pan's kind of, I want something more like big and beefy and everything like that. So I started looking up and it's like, oh yeah, Cernunnos. Oh, cool. And he's got this torque in his hand. And like, and so I think I sent you the concept pic of what I was envisioning, but that's like, it has come about in my personal life. Just in the past month and a half, but it hasn't been connected to any of the paranormal other stuff that I've been experiencing.
Cernunnos, the horned god, master of wild places and things, he was a mysterious Gaelic deity whose name is now used to refer to many nameless horned deities of the Celtic world. By the way, do you say Celtic or Celtic?
I say Celtic.
Me too. It's a hard C. Yeah. It's a hard C.
Two hard C's there.
Yeah. So anyway, in short, that's what it is. And I mean, if you look at the statues of him, he's not just an impish little, goat god. Like he's Fabio. No, he's giant.
He's commanding. Oh yeah,
he is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Brute.
Yep.
So that's my acquaintance with it. But getting back to what we're eventually going to talk about here, James and Tony's thing, you could sense that it was kind of going in a direction where there was this rabbit hole, and there's some, thoughtful ground that I have to navigate, because it's, you know, when a witness is recalling a moment, you have to allow them to do it or not. And sometimes it takes a beat when they're wrapping their mind around reliving that moment with a stranger, especially, right?
Yeah.
So I was in delicate country, but then eventually we get to Santeria. But let's talk initially about the Sasquatch reporting, and tell me your impressions of how the story began.
Well, he was up fishing with his buddy up at what was the name of the lake? I can't pronounce it.
It like, I want to say Gemaldo, or it's, you know, definitely sounds
fishing at night with his buddy at the lake. He heard his fishing rod drop, so he kind of gets up. I don't think he was asleep at this point, but his buddy was in the truck. Angelo, I think his name was. And he hear a sound or something, and looks, and he sees a bear, right? He sees this bear like taking a drink of water. He's like, "Oh yeah, bear! Hey, bear!" And he starts yelling at it, "Hey, bear!" And then the bear doesn't do anything, and so he's like, "Hey, bear!" And the bear stands up, and when it stands up, it doesn't stand up like a bear. It stands up like a Sasquatch. And oh, by the way, I love his pronunciation of Sasquatch. He says Sasquatch.
Yes,
wonderful.
Yes,
Sasquatch.
Yes.
Yeah. So he shines his light on it, and several weird things happen. So he shines his light, his super bright LED light, shines his light on it, and he instantly says he zoomed into it like a camera, right? And like saw the face and everything, and then zoomed back. And when he zoomed back, the Sasquatch took like 4 or 5 like huge strides, very quick, and then just went into a tree, not behind it or in front of it or over it or around it, but went into a tree, and then it was gone. So
and I wanted to really do my best to bring out the details of that moment there, because I know what I would think is that he misidentified the perspective, and this thing walked behind the tree into the darkness. And so I wanted to make sure that the audience knew what he was saying, because before that, he was absolutely positive that this thing was walking into the bark of the tree, right? So the big difference.
Right. Yeah, big difference there. Yeah, totally. Like when he was talking about it, he's like, "Oh no, it didn't go around it, didn't go over it." It reminded me of that old camp song, going through the woods or something. Oh, there's a log. Oh, can't go over it, can't go under it, gotta go around it. So and I've heard similar stories from people up here, actually. One of the guys I was working with had not a Sasquatch going into a tree, but he saw it. It was a daylight sighting, and he could see it in the daylight. So when it passed the sunlight, he could see it. And then in the shadow, like when there was no sunlight, it would just like disappear. And he saw this thing going through the trees, and every time it passed into a shaded area, it would disappear. So I don't know if that's related, but like what's your thoughts on this, like going into the tree?
You know, it goes to the weird sounds. It goes to this idea of what someone brought up to me a couple years ago about a telluric energy field concept, where things are utilizing earth energy to transmit or interact, in a power source of some kind. And a tree is kind of like a standing rooted antenna. I mean, it's a grounded energy field rooted into maybe some kind of, I don't know, quartz or magnetic structure underneath it. It's an out there theory, but
and it has water flowing through it, and electric current, just like us,
Right.
Yeah.
And don't let us forget to talk a little bit later about the portal that you and I made, and we both did the ribbon cutting ceremony. But we'll get to that. We're trying to make our own energy field right now on our properties and see if we can get anything going on. But so he sees this. It walks into. Oh, the dog agrees. It walks into the tree, and then he goes down and talks to the park host. The park host is, pretty on the spot with the look on his face and guesses exactly what has happened. Have you ever
saw Bigfoot, did you?
Right.
Didn't you?
Yeah. Now, have you ever had anybody, or have you ever guessed at what happened to somebody in the same way that this park host did, just by the expression on their face?
The closest I can say is with my experiences with Colin, who I experienced all that strangeness out in Hope. I got to know him pretty well, a good friend, and when strange stuff happened, and I knew he saw something strange, I was like, dude, you just saw something strange. And he would just pass it off as like nothing, like, oh, that was just a shadow from a car, or oh, it was just a really tall dude. And I'm like, no, you saw something, didn't you? And I would slowly tease it out of him, and we figure out that, just back and forthing, like, oh yeah, no, there was an actual 8-foot tall shadow passing 15 feet in front of us that passed a lit window in the house. It wasn't a shadow from a car. Or like, no, that wasn't some tall, lanky, here's a quote from him, tall, lanky motherfucker. That wasn't a tall, lanky motherfucker like basketball player following us back from the beach. That was like a friggin' like Slender Man character. Like that guy, that thing was 9 feet tall, dude. He's like, holy shit, it was. So yeah, those are my kind of experiences closest to that.
Right. Yeah, no, I've seen that look before in a couple other people's faces. One of the guys was Todd, who I interviewed regarding his encounter up in a place called French Pete, and I found him the next day after he'd left this area where there's a missing kid that was actually, they found his remains up there 3 years later after he went missing. But, here I am in the same area hiking around, squatching up there, and then I see Todd coming down the road out of nowhere. He'd just done an overnight in this really random remote area looking for this dead kid. And
is that the dude with the dragon wagon?
Right. Yeah. But he had that look on his face, like he had definitely had a spell, and it's an unmistakable look of awe, exhilaration, trauma, all mixed into one.
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
Yeah, and James even mentions that before. After he has his experience with seeing this, he talks about this adrenaline dump that happens to him. It's a feeling of excitement and foreboding. And can you relate to that?
In terms of my personal experiences? Seeing others.
Well, this adreno dump that happens to males generally.
Oh, I can definitely relate to that with some of my experiences for sure. The whole Hope experience, that was all like full on adrenaline for me. I never felt scared at a single point. It was just like pure adrenaline. And I think that was kind of why I felt so confident out there, like fearless. here I am, running, 1 kilometer down a completely dark train track and yelling at the top of my lungs for my friend. And I'm just like, just absolute no fear, 100% confidence, just barreling into a situation that I have no idea what's happening. I have maybe some clue that it might be Sasquatch, but I have no idea. All I know is like full on adrenaline and my friend's in trouble. So
before we go on, I've kind of screwed up the beginning of this show. What's your beer of choice today? What kind of crappy sweet beer do you got? Sour beer are you drinking?
No. You know what? I really wanted to go out to the grocery store and get a nice, those nice cool beers with the cool, paranormal themed labels that I like to, review on the show. But I'm going into the grocery store like once a week now, and not even going in. I'm doing all my grocery store purchases online. I'm just like sending them emails and e-transfers and just like, okay, pick it up at the door. So, I was like, oh yeah, we've got an Ales and Tales coming up. Oh shit. I can't get a really cool beer this time because I'm not going to go to that grocery store just for one beer. So I am drinking a lukewarm because I have no refrigerator. I've not had a refrigerator for the past 10 months.
Well,
I'm drinking a...
That's a fact I didn't know. So yeah, okay.
Oh yeah. Well, I was camping from May till October at a local campsite, and then I got into a cabin here which doesn't have anything. It's just a room, so I set up a hot plate and I had a cooler, and it's just like indoor camping for me. I wasn't, I'm not.
We need to start an Alex Witcombe refrigerator campaign of some kind here.
Just a mini fridge would be
little mini fridge, yeah.
But now that the weather's been getting warm, see, it was fine in the winter. I just kept my stuff outside.
Oh, now I get it. Your beer's actually fine when you get it, but then it goes bad because no refrigeration. So these are sour beers by accident.
Yeah, different kind of fermentation there. So yes, I am drinking a slightly cool Pacific Pilsner from Pacific Western Brewing Company, Prince George, BC. It's I don't know. It's Pacific Pilsner. What do I say?
I know. It's a good beer.
It's a beer.
It's just a beer. All right.
Yeah, it's just a beer. What do you got?
So I am back up here with a Kilter's Irish Death Dark Smooth Ale. It's like a Guinness with a bite. It's a good compromise between Guinness and a darker beer. I'm not really into anything that's too stouty. If you haven't heard this by now, I'm a lightweight. Generally, like 2 beers, and I'm already kind of feeling tipsy and feeling good, and then the sleepiness will come in, and I immediately have to get a coffee ready or a couple Anison waiting for me over there.
Or go see a Sasquatch and get an adrenaline dump.
There you go. Right.
Yeah. I don't like now.
Get chased around the block by Cernunnos, something like that.
Try my acorn.
Try my acorn. That sounds like a beer. I'm sure there is an acorn beer.
Yeah.
A big old Cernunnos logo on it.
So, back to the Cernunnos thing. If I could just backtrack there. Were you living at a place where there was acorns, or is just acorn randomly show up?
No, there's no acorns out here. But the way things work out here at the property that we call the Owl Moon Altar is that sometimes things will show up from collected items that you have stored away. So this most likely was an acorn from a storage box. Now, generally, it's these cedar balls that get taken and moved around, and they'll get them out of, well, there's only 6 drawers where these, cedar balls are. It's in the shirts and socks and underwear drawer. And, they just smell like cedar. And they go outside sometimes, meaning underneath a ceramic frog as late as last week, or get moved, out into the forest, sit on top of stumps, or they'll be put next to other round rocks that look like a cedar ball. These are, fossil rocks that we collect that are perfectly round, like little tiny golf balls. But then we get golf balls too, right? Like, because there's golf balls that have been, there was, a guy that rents up from us that before we lived here turned the forest into a fairway, and he would smack golf balls into the woods.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Once in a while, you'll find a golf ball in an interesting spot, and so that's the kind of activity we have going around here now. In the case of, the Bigfoot activity that James and Tony are describing, they never describe anything like having that kind of interaction.
No.
But that's my familiarity with it, is once you get involved with the subject matter, it tends to, spiral pretty quickly if you look into it, and if you
feed it.
If you're open to it, and literally sometimes.
Yeah. Well, yeah, literally. But if you feed it with energy and interest, then, it'll keep on coming back.
Yeah. Let me crack this open here and see if I mean, it sounds like you're already into a couple of these already yourself. I can tell.
Number 2.
Oh, I've got a technical issue here. My what is the technical name for the cap opening part of a beer? The tab? The tab. The tab on this one has malfunctioned. So now I'm twisting it off. And I'm pushing. Oh, there we go. I found a way. Now it's like a little can of sardines. It's like a little can of sardines.
Sardine beer.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so then he talks to the camp host. Camp host basically says, well, hold on one second here, Alex. Hey, someone calling in. Hold on one moment, okay?
Sure.
Okay. Mark, are you there?
Yeah, this is me.
Okay, so Mark, Alex didn't know you're calling in, but this is the perfect time. Alex, this is Mark Parker. And
Hey, Mark.
Hey, how's it going, Alex?
Hey, good. How are you?
Good.
So Mark was down in Cottage Grove area, and he's been working with Daryl on and off down in the Al Moon Lab area, and he had some interesting stuff happen not too long ago, less than 4 or 5 days ago. He's had some interesting stuff even before that time, but I thought because James and Tony's story was about a witness experiencing something amazing, like a Sasquatch walking into a tree. Mark kind of slid in too nicely here not to talk to him. And so I haven't had a chance to really sit down with Mark and talk about what's happened since he started working this area. But why don't you tell me and Alex a little bit about your encounter?
Okay. So with the full moon coming up, I've been wanting to go up there with somebody. So I was talking with Daryl. I'm like, hey, let's go up Wednesday. It's going to be full moon. It's supposed to be clear, decent weather. What do you think? He's like, yeah, let's go. So we headed up there. We get up there about probably 8:00 at night. And we walk down in to where Daryl's little feeding station is, because he had just baited a couple days before, and everything was gone. So we're kind of standing there looking, and I look off to the side and I see a bunch of viney maple all twisted up and knotted and woven together and stuff. I'm like, holy crap, that's weird. Look at this, Daryl. And he goes, man, I've never seen that before. So we're standing there, and I look just down the trail, even not that much further, probably, 5-6 feet away. And there's one that is just an awesome one. It is huge and just tons of knots, tons of woven areas through it. Pretty intricate. And when we're standing there, we look down, and there's a complete set of tracks. There's a left foot and a right foot, a full stride. So we thought, oh, that's pretty cool. And, we're just kind of looking around, and we decided to go, Daryl wanted to go look at your little spot over there, Toby. And so we headed over there. And as we're walking over there, you know, I kind of have my head down looking a different direction than Daryl. And he goes, Mark, right there, there's 2 orbs going up the hill. And I turn, and I didn't turn in time to see him. And he looks at me and goes, man, this isn't good, because when these orbs start showing up, bad stuff starts happening. He's going, look, you know, and he's got hair standing on him. You know, it's just standing up on end. And I'm like, okay. So we go check your area, and there's some weird stuff, some sticks jammed into the end of a log that had never been in there before. And we found this one piece of bark just kind of laying funny on that same stump that we didn't remember being there before. So we pick it up, and there's a really old cork out of, you know, wine bottle, tequila bottle, whiskey bottle, something. It's a pretty old cork. So we took a picture of it and sent it to Toby to see if he'd noticed it or, you know, recognized it. And he didn't. It was something new to him too. So he's all, you know, it's kind of getting dark. Let's start heading out. I'm like, yeah, okay. So we get up to the top of the road there, and we grabbed the chairs out of the back of the truck and found a flat spot where we can kind of just peek over the edge, but be back enough where we're on a flat spot. So we get set down up there, and I had borrowed my dad's night vision to play around up there, and then Daryl had brought his parabolic and recorder and stuff. And so we get sat down, and we're sitting there for a while, and we end up, if we're facing down the hillside, Toby, your stuff is straight down from us, and then Daryl's would be off to our left-hand side. So off to our right-hand side, we hear kind of like the Ohio howl way down in the bottom of the canyon. And we kind of look at each other. Yeah, we heard that. You know, that's kind of cool. And so we were sitting there for a while, and Daryl kept saying, man, I keep hearing something over on that right side. And I didn't hear anything. I couldn't hear it. But I've got a little bit of hearing loss anyway, but I just couldn't hear it. And all night long, or, you know, the whole time we're there, he's like, man, there's something coming from the right. Well, I don't know, probably 9 o'clock or so out in front of me. And it's hard to tell how far it was out, because I've never seen one before. And it was an orb, and it shot from behind one set of trees to behind another set. And it was red. So I'm, you know, swinging my arm over at Daryl. Look, red one. And, you know, like I said, I'd never seen one before, and they're weird because it's like it's glowing, but it's not putting off light. Like when it goes up to something, it doesn't like light up. You know, when it went by the trees, it didn't light the trees up. It was just a red glowing ball moving across. I don't know truly how big it was, because I don't know, you know, with it being super dark in the timber there, I had no depth perception to see, you know, so I really don't know. But like visually, what I could see, it was like about the size of a pea in my hand. But like I said, I don't know if it was, you know, 6 feet in front of me or, you know, 60, 80 yards from me. So I really don't know truly how big it was. So we continued to sit there, and I just kept getting this weird vibe. I'm starting to have hair stand up on my neck, and I thought, something's just not right. And so I picked up the night vision, and I turned it on, threw it up to my eye, and I looked where that red orb was. And from one set of trees to the other had a Bigfoot walk right across in front of us. And it freaked me out because I wasn't expecting it. So I hopped up, Daryl hopped up, we jumped in the truck and took off. You know, it was one of those, I wish it would have been day, because, you know, you can at least see at nighttime. It's so dark up there with the big timber and, you know, all the cover. It scared the crap out of us. So we got out of there, and that was Wednesday night. So we went back on Saturday morning, because we wanted to, you know, get measurements and stuff to see how tall it was and see if we could find its tracks and everything like that. Because we never heard it. Once it got close to us, we never heard it walking at all. We never heard anything. We just seen it come out from behind the one tree and go behind the other trees, and it was gone. You know, and it may have continued walking. I don't know. We just headed up and out of there. Our theory was, we kind of thought, because every time we go up there, Daryl and I are always taking cookies and peanut butter and stuff like that for them, and setting up little areas, because we're always trying to catch, see if we can catch hares, or we set up little traps to see if we can catch that kind of stuff. So we thought maybe that they heard us come up. We went in there, did our thing, come back out, and now he's thinking there's food there. So, because where he was coming from and going towards was actually going towards that stump. So we get down there Saturday morning, and we go down, and I sat down and lined up. Okay, it crossed right there, and it was pretty close. It was between 20 to 25 yards at the most from us. And so I went down, I took a stick and kind of leaned it up in the tree off of a branch so that I could kind of get a visual. So I went back again and sat, and I'm like, okay, it was right there. Walked down there with a tape measure, and it was about 9 to 9.5 foot tall. So when I saw it from just below the waist up. I couldn't see its legs or anything. And that's what we ended up seeing. So then we also checked, because we found the one set of tracks down by the woven branches, a full right foot and then a left foot step, and measured it. So heel to heel was 64 inches. So it's got a pretty big stride on it. And this is a track that we find in there all the time. I've seen it a bunch. You've seen it a bunch, Toby, and Daryl has too. And it runs about a 15.5 inch long by about 6 to 6.5 inch wide. So it's a fairly decent sized track, and it's usually in the ground a good 2 inches deep. So it's fairly heavy. So yeah, that's just kind of in a nutshell what happened there to us on Wednesday night.
Yeah, and I got the call on your way back from Cottage Grove to Albany, and then you were pretty fresh off your sighting. I'm out there trying to watch Elon Musk roller coaster satellites going across the sky, and I'm like number 13, and here's Mark, fresh off a diaper moment from Cottage Grove. So,
it was definitely an underwear changing moment. We'll leave it at that.
Right. I mean, there's so much to go through, because you weren't necessarily on board. You weren't against the idea that there's going to be, UFO stuff connected to this whole thing. But
right.
Walk Alex through this. Walk everybody through this, as far as like your perspective, maybe shifting. Is that fair to say, with maybe what's going on?
Yeah, definitely. So I'll start out with my first encounter, which happened to me this last year back in August. I'd been spending a lot of time over in Eastern Oregon, going about every 2 to 3 weeks. I bow hunt over there, and I like to hunt by myself. So I went over there, and I was going to hunt for 11 straight days by myself and then come home. I got there Monday, like early afternoon, and got everything set up. Then running trail cams, tons of animals. Every time I was there, I'd have at least 100 to 150, sometimes 200 pictures of elk, deer, bear, everything over there. And so I get over there, and I'm not seeing anything. I mean, everything has just absolutely disappeared. And so on Tuesday evening, I'm sitting over a freshwater spring, and got the wind coming down the hill in my face. And back behind me, I hear a twig break. And I'm thinking, crap, I'm going to get busted. So I grab my wind indicator, and it's blowing off me right directly to where that twig broke. And there's a lot of deadfall in there. So it's damn near impossible to be quiet. So I just sat there, and I'm like, we'll see what happens. And it just kept coming closer and closer and closer. And I'm like, okay, this isn't right. Every animal that I know should be busting and leaving every time. And wouldn't, just kept coming. And then it started going off to my left-hand side. So I'm thinking, okay, it's going to step out. I'm going to get a shot. So I got my arrow, and my release on my string. I'm ready to go to take my shot, and it hangs up behind me on my left-hand side. So then it goes to the right, does the same thing. And it goes back and forth probably 4 or 5 times. And then it's probably behind me, maybe 20 yards, and does a massive triple tree knock. And I'm like, holy shit, what is that? because I was always one of those, I thought they could be out there. I was never like, okay, yes, 100% they are, or 100% no, it's bullcrap. But it didn't even click in my mind. I've always listened to, the podcast and a lot of TV shows and stuff like that. And it didn't dawn on me right away that it was a tree knock. But I'm like, I don't like this. And it's a long hike out of here. I'm out. So I grabbed my stuff, hiked out. And so over the next few days, I kept sitting in that tree stand on top of the mountain, same area, just right on top rather than at the bottom. And every morning, like clockwork, 9:30, something would walk behind me, and it would make noises and stuff that I'd never recognized. And I just thought, that's kind of weird, and every morning, same thing, because the wind's coming up the hillside and it blows back over to the backside of that hill where that animal's walking. And same thing, it would never bust. So I'm like, screw it. This is Sunday or Saturday. I'm like, screw it. Sunday, I'm going up in there. And so I used my Onyx to get myself back in, 2 hours before light and get sat back down in there, find a good spot to just sit for the day. So I got sat down, sun comes up and stuff, and it's quiet like normal, or, normal in the morning, and it kind of gets birdie, and then it just went dead silent. Again, don't think anything of it. And I catch off some movement off to my left-hand side. So I just kind of turn my head real slow and I look, and I catch a brown face come out and go back really fast. And I thought to myself, was that a hunter? And that's weird, because I never heard it come in, and I should have heard it, because again, there's a ton of deadfall in there and you just cannot be quiet. And then it wasn't probably, 10 seconds after that, it sticks its head out and it's just sitting there staring at me. And it stared at me for probably 15 seconds or so, and then pulled its head back. And again, I never heard it. I don't know if it walked off, nothing, because where I was in the reprod. It was just a bunch of open patches, that you'd have just a little meadow. And so I was sitting kind of in one of the edges of the meadow, and he was out in the reprod. So that one, I was like, that's it. I'm done. I'm out. And I got up, went over the top of the hill, got down in the canyon, went all the way back to the truck, loaded up the truck, and then I just crashed, physically and mentally. I was drained. I was done. I just sat in a chair and just vegged out, got in the truck, went to sleep, got up, and came home the next morning. So I didn't say anything to anybody for the longest time. And in my head, it's an ape. I was a 100% after seeing that. It's physical. I could, technically I could reach out and touch it. That is an animal, 100% aper. And so, I didn't say anything for anybody for a long time, what had happened. And finally, got in touch with a guy, or he actually got in touch with me. I'd gotten a tattoo of the state of Oregon with the Oregon tree off the license plate, and a Bigfoot standing next to it, and then a star where it happened. So I posted it on a Facebook page and, said, hey, I did this because I had an encounter, just to kind of, because I was at that point, I finally wanted to talk to somebody about it, but I didn't know who to talk to, or, so I just kind of threw it out there to see what would happen. And I talked with a guy, and he ended up hooking me up with Daryl. So I met with Daryl, and, I'm talking with Daryl the first time we're going out, and I'm like, yeah, it's 100% ape. I'm an aper, blue people are crazy. And that's just kind of how I looked at it. And the more I am there, I've definitely swapped. There's too many strange things that I've caught on camera that I cannot explain. Seeing the orbs in there, and then, what I hear the other people that, I always thought was on the woo side was, I'm starting to see it. And I'm like, okay, so there's definitely something to this. It's not just, an animal. There's something going on besides, what I can, grasp. I've gotten, I've sent Toby some pictures of, these two bushes that I had cookies in, and I had my trail cam set up on no delay, with a 6-shot burst. So it would, if something's standing there, it's literally going to take 6 shots, just bam, 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 and then 6 more, bam, 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 with no delay between it. It's just going to continually take pictures. Well, in a series of pictures of the first 6 that it was firing off, you could see the 2 bushes loaded up with cookies. And the second one, between pictures, you literally see the bush shift off to the side and all the cookies disappear out of it. And just, I can't explain it. I have no idea, you know, and then I get continue pictures after that, and you know, the cookies are gone out of that bush. I can't explain it. I've caught orbs on the camera. Yeah, I mean, there's just stuff in there that I can't explain. That, you know,
now, your camera,
definitely...
Mark, your camera was messed with too, wasn't it?
Yes. So I buried it in the ground one time, to where all that was hanging out was the lens, the sensor, and the LED lights for the you know, the infrared. I've had that pulled out of the ground and laid over. I stuck the camera one time. I shoved it down inside of a stump to where all you could see is the face of it, and then I put crap on top of it. So basically, you can just see the face in the stump. The only way that's coming out is to rip it back out through the top. I've had it pulled out, laid down on the ground. I just, it's stuff like that I can't explain. Cannot explain.
You know, and here you have something potentially watching you as you come in and leave the woods. And if it wanted to, let's just say that this is a higher intelligence, they can just take your camera. You'd never see it again. I mean, at the very least, it disappear or, you know, get ruined, or, you know, a rock hit it. I don't know. But it's just kind of set gently, you know, there's not even moved more than 24 inches from the spot, just set down, you know, face.
No. Yeah, the one that was buried in the ground, it literally just pulled it out of the hole and then laid it over sideways. And then the one out of the stump, it just pulled it up out of the stump and then laid it on the ground right next to the stump. Yeah, I mean, it didn't go anywhere. I mean, the camera stayed there. It just wasn't where I put it. You know, it was messed with. And you're not going to you're going to have to physically get a hold of that. You know, if a bear comes in or whatever, it's going to rip that stump up trying to get to that camera. And bears, I've had cameras that are chewed up by bears. They'll chew them up. They break the crap out of them. Well, they're going to do the same thing to that stump. If they're wanting that camera, they're going to tear up that stump to get the camera. Well, you go there and there's nothing wrong with the stump. It's just been physically pulled out, you know. And every time I go in there and I see that our bait is gone, I don't say, okay, Bigfoot every time. I always try and look, okay, is there bear tracks here? Is there deer tracks here? Is there cougar tracks here? Is there coyote? Anything, you know, trying to, you know, debunk, because I don't want to say everything, because, you know, there could be a bird that come in there, flow down, grabbed a hold of the cookies and flew off and not leave any sign or whatever. So you kind of got to come at it with that perspective. But yeah, there's too much in there that I cannot explain. That I just
Mark,
look at and I just.
Mark, do you feel the cameras moving was some sort of message?
I have since taken it out. I have taken it out of the woods. So and it very well could have been you know, kind of, because, you know, starting to see some of this stuff going to where I can't explain. I've gone in the woods, and when I put my camera up, I'll physically say, hey, you know, hey, my name's Mark, you know, I mean you no harm. I just would like to see you in your physical form, what you look like. I'd like to learn more about you, you know, stuff like that, so that I'm not, you know, I'm not trying to go out and, you know, profit from anything or whatever. I want to know more about it, about them, you know. So it very well could have been, you know. But like I said, since then I've taken the camera out and I haven't put it back in there.
Yeah, and back
don't really have any.
The other sign down there too, Mark, with the bear and deer. I haven't found a lot of deer sign. Generally, you find on a game trail pellets, and there's not a lot of pellets in and around that specific grid where all the gifting and food has started to happen.
Yeah.
Would you agree there's not a whole lot of active deer sign?
Yeah, no, I don't. I've been a hunter for probably 35 years at least, and I've not seen any sign of any big game animal in there at all. Nothing.
And
I see absolutely nothing.
It's right near a spring. It's right near a creek. I mean, less than, maybe a mile and a half down the road. So there's ample opportunity. There's a wetlands down there. Plus there's food.
There's literally
food
two of them because I found another one.
Right.
There's 2 wetlands through there. I found basically on each side, because, we're kind of on that knob. On each side of that knob, there's a creek running down through there. Because if you're looking down the hill, from the truck, Daryl's stuff is to the left. I walked out probably 3/4 of a mile out to the left and just kind of down looking for some more sign and seeing if I could find any other twists and stuff. And I couldn't find anything down in there. And, I walked there, I found a nice little swamp with a creek running down around it and looked in the mud and stuff. Nothing. It just seems to be concentrated up on that knob, and that's it. Just from the top, all the way down.
Before Mark went up there and got involved with this, Alex, we spoke to a guy named Scott Carpenter. There's an episode on patreon.com/Strange Brow Radio. And in the members area there is an interview with Scott Carpenter. Now, he had a similar experience being a flesh and blood guy to moving towards the way paranormal aspect of the phenomena, and he suggested using what's called the fly trap technique, where you take double-sided sticky tape or you take rat catcher mouse traps, and then you hang those in the tree near a food spot to see if you can walk away with a skin cell sample or hair. Now, I got some pictures today of bright red hair on a rat trap. Did you see that too?
Yes. So Daryl and I are always trying to come up with different ideas, figuring out ways. And that was something we'd come up with, was getting some sticky traps and nailing them onto the trees and putting cookies on them so that they would have to grab a hold of it to pull the cookie off and, hopefully either leave us a fingerprint or, again, some hair, anything like that. So Daryl picks them up, and I think he stuck up 4 or 5 of them up there. Yeah, and the one there is definitely some orangish reddish hair.
Now, what going through all of your 35 plus years of being a hunter, what kind of animal has that color hair that would be that high up in a tree?
Well, the only thing that could get to that, are going to be squirrels and stuff like that where it's at. No big game, animal. And the only thing that would be even remotely close to that is maybe some chipmunk hair, but I don't even see that matching. It just, when we were looking at it, I'm just kind of going, okay, could it be a squirrel? Nah, the squirrels are all around here are typically gray. The chipmunks, well, it kind of got a little bit of a red hue, but it's more tan, and this is definitely more on the red side, reddish orange side. So off of anything I know of, no, I have no idea. I have no idea what it would be over here.
And only 3 days before, roughly 72 hours before Mark had his sighting, Alex, there was a group of gals from Cresswell Paranormal. And the gal's name, I believe, is Tara. And she is a horse breeder. She also is a horse or a trans-species communicator and psychic. She would come to the Axe and Fiddle as she would do readings in this haunted bar live on stage for us. And there's 3 of them, and they all have spirit guides that they talk to. And they were up in a spot where they have a lot of action with not just Bigfoot stuff. In fact, they were kind of skeptical of all the Bigfoot stuff that I was pushing. Anyway, so they go up there to do their psychic stuff, and they've had some pretty incredible stuff happen there. One of them was an image of these 4 fingers that sweep in front of their camera as they're panning their camera from left to right over the sun setting. And the 4 fingers look a lot like what Daryl had infused in his spare bedroom wall, those chalky.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I pay attention to that stuff, certainly, because there's a lot going on this mountain. So they're up there around 10 o'clock at night, and they have a Bigfoot encounter about 25 feet away from them. And so they're pretty shaken up about it. They weren't expecting it. And so then Mark goes down there, and he has a sighting 72 hours later. So these are incredibly close sightings, all around the same time of night. And the detail of the orb, I think, is really interesting, because I didn't talk to you about what these orbs look like, and you're describing what other witnesses describe when they see one of these orbs. You described an interesting quality of the fact that they don't emit light, that they basically they are light but without the emission. The closest we can get to is like a glow stick, right? Like kind of that dense color. Would that be right?
Yeah, absolutely. But even like the glow sticks you put up to a tree and it's going to light the tree up, these just didn't light anything up. But they had that absolute, that light quality of like a glow stick. Absolutely.
Well, was it a glow stick?
No.
Was it a guy with how about a headlamp? A guy running through the woods at night with a red headlamp on?
Nope. No. He would have had to been 80 foot tall. There's not too many of those guys running around. So, yeah.
And you didn't see this on your IR lens. You saw this with your naked eye.
Yeah, naked eye. Just looking. I was just kind of just sitting there listening and just because of coming from the hunting background, I use my ears a lot. And also my eyes, but like when you can't quite see, you just kind of go off of your ears. And a lot of times I'll just close my eyes and I'll listen for a while and then open them up and just kind of look around, even when I'm hunting. It could be in the daytime. If I'm hunting, I'll close my eyes and just really listen, because it kind of, you take that extra sense out that, that you may not be able to see something because it's so thick in a certain area that now I'm not thinking about seeing. I'm just concentrating on my hearing. And you just kind of, you're able to pick some stuff up. So I just I'll bounce between senses like that. I'm not trying to, it's not like I'm ESP or anything like that, but I just try and take advantage of whatever's best in that situation, whatever sense is best to use. And see, growing up, I grew up in a house that was haunted. We had some crazy crap that went on there. Nothing ever malevolent or anything. So I've always been really open to that sort of stuff. And I think that's why I've always been open to, Bigfoot could be out there, before I ever had my sightings, that, because I've been touched. We've had stuff at our house, moved, TVs turned on and off. And this was like old school TVs back before we had remote controls. When I was a kid, when I was the remote control, go up, pull the knob to turn it on for dad, and turn the dial to change the channels, turn it, and, so the stuff would come on, go off, same thing, stereo, doors. My daughter and myself one year on a paranormal investigation during Halloween, and that's when I was getting pushed on. Called out my daughter's name. So I think that's one of those things that if you're open, things are going to show themselves to you that are not like what you can see, grasp, feel, touch, taste, that sort of stuff. Where if you're more open to some of this stuff that is just, you can't explain, I think more stuff, comes out, shows itself to you.
Now, James, we were just talking about a guy named James and Tony, and they had an encounter in New Mexico. And quick and short of it, the name of the episode is, basically Into the Tree. He saw a Sasquatch walk into a tree. He was certain that it didn't go around it. I mean, you're certain about details about seeing a Sasquatch on infrared.
Right.
Drawing conclusions about the lights being connected to the phenomena. Some might think that that's irresponsible, that somehow the two are not connected. You had a UFO encounter and then you had a Bigfoot encounter. They're two separate events. Do you feel that way, or how do you think they're connected?
Like I said, I've kind of started going down that, and there has to be some sort of connection, because if you really pay attention, and I'm starting to, now that I've gotten more into the Bigfoot community, rather than being kind of on the outside looking in, you're hearing some more people that trust you, and trust what you say, and you trust what they say. They're starting to open up a little more. I've had some people that when I first met them, they were the same thing as me. Oh, I'm just diehard aper. That's it. They're an ape. They're an ape. They're an ape. And now that I've gotten to know them and they trust me, and that I'm not going to be, oh, you're freaking batshit crazy, blah, blah, blah. They're opening up, hey man, I've been having these orbs coming. I can't explain them. And there's one guy that I got to know pretty well that's been doing it for over 40 years. And he's really been getting into a lot of orbs and stuff. And he's the same way. And he's like, I can't explain this stuff, Mark. I don't know. There's something to it, because it's not just, one guy out of 10, there's quite a few of them. So obviously, there's some sort of connection between them. I don't know what the connection is at this point, but there definitely is a connection between the orbs and the big guys.
Right. And you said it was pretty high off the deck. I didn't really know how high the light was. Did you say 8 feet?
80, but because you're going down, because you're going downhill, how steep it is right there on that hillside. So, it's from where I am, it was straight out, but it was, it's going to be pretty high off the ground once you get out there a ways. So, it could be, like I said, I don't truly know how far or close it was to me, because I could not, there's no depth perception, because it's all black, and then you just see this red streak going across through the timber in front of you. I caught a quick glimpse, goes behind a tree, and then it comes out, and I could see it plain as day going across, goes behind some more trees, and then I couldn't see it.
And you're no small guy either, just so people know. No. You're, how tall are you?
I'm 6'2", 265. I'm a robust young man.
and of course, I mean, this gets into the nerd part of us that wants to talk about the anatomy of Bigfoot here. Of course, they're big, but anything over 8 feet is a monster. And I mean that in the nicest way, because I think I've met this monster on one occasion, and it was more scared of me than I was of it. Or maybe we were mutually scared of one another. But you've tried to duplicate the depth, and I've tried to explain to people how difficult it is to make a right angle cookie cutter dent in spongy, needly ground in the forest. You've tried to do this before. Were you successful trying to make this impression?
Not even remotely close. So I'll jump in the air, and as I'm coming down, I'll stomp on the ground as hard as I possibly can to exert as much force as I can on that ground. Those tracks are typically, I would say, 1.5 inches up to 2 inches thick on the bigger tracks, and I'm lucky to get 1/2 inch in the ground. So, there's some definite weight behind them. Definite weight behind them.
Yeah. Alex, any questions from you?
Yeah. Do you think it's actual weight or something else?
Oh, good question.
Because I mean, looking back, Tobe, the gravel imprints. I think that was Owl Moon Lab. It was crushed gravel, and it was impacted
right into the hard pan.
Into the hard pan.
Yeah, and that's what makes me wonder.
How much force would that have taken?
Yeah. Yeah, well, and it could be them stomping as they're walking too, because like the one over east that was behind me that ended up tree knocking, the whole time he once after that twig broke and I heard him come in, he was stomping the whole time. He was not trying to be quiet. It was just boom, 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 boom. Then it would get quiet, and boom, 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 back behind me the other side, just back and forth, and he was stomping pretty heavy. So in some of those he could be doing that. What I can't, another thing that I can't explain, like those two tracks. We have two tracks, just perfect, crystal clear, see the toes in them, plain as day, left foot, right foot. And then after that, there's not another track. And before those two tracks, there's not any tracks.
Mm-hmm.
So they're obviously doing something to, and again, this is just me thinking outside the box. I don't know if they're going, okay, well, yeah, we'll leave them two tracks right here. Boom, boom, stomp two tracks for us. And then nothing. Because we see that all the time where we'll see, oh, there's one track right here. And it's all the same material. It's all the soft fir needles. And then, the next, you just don't see anymore. And it's like, do they, what's going on? Do they float away? I don't know. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's, I don't even know what kind of weight would have to be distributed to cut a 90-degree angle down into that kind of earth and leave a 15-inch track.
Yeah.
It would take some, ungodly power. And you do imagine them kind of stomping their feet down into the dirt substantially, but it's not like the heel is a lot deeper. It's just a flat print from the toe all the way to the back of the heel. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah. And see, like, so where that Bigfoot crossed in front of Daryl and I on Wednesday night, it was walking on a trail, and we walked up and down that trail and never saw track one. But so I don't know, it's crazy. But then I never saw its feet either when it was crossing in front of us. Like I said, it was just a little bit from the waist, a little bit below the waist up is what I saw. So I physically didn't see his legs. So
what exactly did you see there, Mark? Any details or?
Well, it's a Gen 1 night vision, so I couldn't. It's not like it's the greatest in the world by any means, but you could see plain as day. He, walking or had his arms swinging. He was sideways to me. I saw the profile. He never looked up towards us. It was like he was a man on a mission. And chest wise, I'd say he was probably pushing 2 foot thick. So he was pretty deep chested. I didn't pay attention. I don't know, great details on it because I wasn't, it's one of those, and it happened with me before when I saw the first one. I focused more on the whole thing and not anything particular. I couldn't say, okay, it had, black eyes with, or, yellow teeth or anything like that. It was just, you're caught in the moment of, oh my God, what is that? Standing there. It's not like, he's got pink lips and, you just don't think of that sort of stuff. But, he was a big boy. He was definitely a big boy. Like I said, he was probably a good 2 foot thick.
So you're saying 2 foot thick from front to back?
From front to back, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, front to back. So from his chest to his back, he's about 2 foot thick. So he's a big boy. He was a big boy. The first one I saw, I don't know.
Go ahead.
Well, the first one I saw, I don't know because all I literally saw was its head stick out.
So this brings up a question that I've been thinking about over the past 6 months. Is, okay, if we're looking at this as an ape species, a hominid, these things are reported to be anywhere from 6.5 feet tall to 12 feet tall. You're saying this guy was 2 foot thick from the chest to the back. With a hominid, an actual hominid species that big, can a hominid species actually be physiologically that big?
It's hard to say because I know a lot of the animals, they grow to their environment, but I think once you get to a certain point, then it's more of a detriment to you because, something that big the calories and stuff it would have to intake to sustain life would be incredible. It would absolutely be incredible.
Considering the amount of calories that we have to intake,
right,
as puny, 5 to 6 foot humans. I mean, 12 feet tall, really? You're going to be eating a deer a day.
Yeah, at least.
Right, and the only time we found a deer kill there was when we were rock hounding, not too far from the spot, and there was a young doe whose neck was snapped. Neck was actually backed by the shoulder blades, ripped backwards, and had just been, deboweled and gutted.
Yeah.
No sharp implements near a. It was pretty fresh, actually. Now that I think about it, because it didn't stink, and there was no bugs on it, and so we didn't find a lot of examples of deer kill. We had some animal mutilation stuff happen there, but. It's just nice. It's confirming to me, because the only other thing that could be going on here, folks, is that Mark had a prank played on him. It would have involved, some kind of pyrotechnic or light show that would have been pre-planned for Mark to be out there. If I was involved with it, I would have to leave the comforts of quarantine, which is about 6 hours away. Be incredibly quiet, walk through brush in a monkey suit. Daryl would have had to be a part of it. It just gets to the point where you're delusional if you think this is a story that is that multi-layered and talented. It's a complex story that now there's more players involved with it, a lot more players, actually. Now we have Dr. Robert Alley slowly immersing himself in this story, little by little, willing to look at the Al Moon knee impressions and verify, as a physician, whether or not he's into Bigfoot, which he absolutely is, agree that these are knee impressions that show human anatomy in him. His measurements are smaller than our measurements, and I'm willing to listen to a physician talk about this all day long. Granted, he hasn't looked at these with his eyes on the actual impressions. He's had some pretty detailed photographs I sent him, and then he's read what is called the Dragoo report regarding the anatomy from a sonographer here in Seattle, and do a back and forth with that report and write up his own analysis. The point being is that this isn't just me and Daryl involved anymore. There are other people willing to immerse themselves in this, and they see data. And is it all about data? No, it's about trying to connect with something way cooler than data, because there is something here that will allow you to look at it. But trust me, folks, that this stuff is looking at you a lot harder than you are it. And what it's gleaming, and my initial impression, and take it for what it's worth, Mark, is that these things are cool with you. I think your camera would have been destroyed if they weren't.
Yeah.
And I think you would have had more than just a sighting. Something maybe would have happened to your truck or back at your house in Albany, which sounds crazy, but since you believe in ghosts. I think they're cool with you, and I'm encouraged for you. I mean, I know you're on vacation right now. You have time to go back in there and do whatever you want, but you've chosen not to go there and stay the night, especially alone. Is that right?
Yeah, not alone. I'm not going to do it. No. If other people are up there, I will, but I won't do it by myself. And see, the funny thing is, like when I go over Eastern Oregon by myself, there's times where I just have my backpack on with my sleeping bag and everything, and wherever I stop that night, that's where I sleep. And it's never bothered me to sleep in the woods by myself at all. But that place, there's just no way I'd do it.
Well, there's only one road. There's only one way out if you're going to drive it, right? I mean, there's no other way out but the road you came in on. So if that's not an option, then the only option is running down the road through the gate.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So, and see, another thing to bring up, like with your, if this was set up and stuff, like when I'm in Eastern Oregon by myself, I carry a sidearm with me. Or that night that we were up there, I carry a sidearm with me. It's not necessarily to protect myself from Bigfoot, but some tweaker comes in there, or a cougar or something like that, and if this would have been set up and somebody would have turned and come at me, I'm going to shoot. I'm not going to just sit there and, And so that would be really stupid for somebody to dress up in a suit and go and try and scare somebody. Oh, I'm Bigfoot. That'd be with as many people that carry sidearms with them or rifles or whatever it may be out in the woods. To do something like that it would just be asinine, just absolutely asinine.
And here's the other little detail too, is that the property is up for sale next door to the Al Moon Lab. So before the property was for sale, and science fiction buffs from Beverly Hills bought the place. Now, to me, that's an interesting detail. I hope I get to the bottom of sometime who these people are, because the fact is that they're into science fiction hardcore and they want to turn it into kind of like a science fiction library place. And they walk in, pay cash for this joint. The place next door to it, the rental property, is now for sale for like $450,000, because you get the property behind the Al Moon Lab that leads to where Mark's talking about. So here's the deal, and I'll break a couple things here. That property's for sale. If you're interested, get in touch with me. Also, Tom Powell, author Tom Powell of The Locals out of Clackamas, Oregon, his cabin is for sale. And that's a very active remote spot. You would be privileged to land Tom Powell's cabin in Clackamas, Oregon. So,
I'd like that.
No kidding. And I've been to both of these places. I can definitely vouch for both of these places being sweet spots for the phenomena. And so if you're interested, strangebrowradio@gmail.com. And maybe we can negotiate prices somehow with these people. But hey, Mark, I appreciate you calling in, man. And maybe I will see you sometime coming down the road here in May.
Yep. Next time you make it down here, we'll hook up.
Okay, dude. Good talking to you.
Thanks a lot, Mark.
All right. It was nice talking to you, Alex.
Yeah, you too, man.
All right.
Cheers.
All right. Bye.
Bye. All right. Well, there you go, Alex. Surprise.
Well, that was cool. Surprise.
It just seemed like it weaved in too nicely to what we were talking about, right?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. So what do you think of the encounter?
Mark's encounter?
Yeah.
Let me see here. Well, I didn't get to ask him the question about whether he was a creative personality. I would have, I missed that one. Because I wanted to talk to him about the weaving of the vine maples and the driftwood stump, the wood stuck in the stump as well.
Because you got to see the photographs of that.
Well, yeah, I got to see the photographs, and the one thing that stuck out to me, that like leapt out to me, was like, it is so artistic. Like, wow, like if I could do that, especially with the vine maples, like, holy, oh man, I was appreciating all of the artistic thought that went into that. And with Daryl sent me the video of the stump, and from one angle it just looks like a whole bunch of random sticks sticking out of stump. Then he pans in and they all line up perfectly parallel, and that's the shot for me. It's like, oh, okay, all right, that's what they wanted us to see. That's like perfect parallel. It's this like random chaotic mess of sticks stuck into a stump, and then like at one particular angle it's just like, boom, nice. But
Daryl even says at one point in the video it looks like cogs on a gear, and he's kind of right. It has this it almost looks like some kind of nature machine or nature technology of some kind.
Perhaps it may be
it might
some
be
kind of nature technology that we don't understand or are privy to, but we've just been given a little taste.
Now, as a guy that works with wood, weaving green vine maple, explain to me, as a guy that doesn't work with wood as much as you do, how difficult those kind of weaves would be to do, because you've seen the photo.
Well, Okay, I don't have a lot of vine maple up here actually. Like on Quadra Island, there's big leaf maple, but not a lot of vine maple. I have done some weaving with some live hawthorn up here. It's very pliable, but it is very difficult. Like I was having trouble just like holding it together just to tie a string around, like for the portal, right? So yeah, like the intricacies in those vine maple pieces are incredible. They're beautiful, and that's what like leapt out at me. I was like, holy cow,
Yeah,
that is just like that's just freaking art, man.
It's super tight too. Like
Yeah.
I mean, you couldn't stick a finger through these weaves. They're really tight, and these are not like small little branches. These are the big stalk of the vine maple that they bent over, wove little belts around, and
yeah, and it would be very difficult to actually keep that together. Actually, like when you put it all together, and like how did they keep it all together like woven like that? I'm working with live hawthorn here, and I have to use like twine to keep it together.
Yeah,
So,
you bring up a good point, because the end would untether and the rest of it would just pop open.
Yeah,
Nature would reclaim its.
right?
Yeah, right?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and when it comes to stick stuff like that too, I generally have to really be blown away and debunk the hell out of it, because, nature does crazy stuff all the time. But this is just so unrandom looking. It looks so designed, so artistic.
Oh, no. Totally designed, totally artistic. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
From the moment I saw those photos, I was like, oh, yeah, okay.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know if I can do that.
Yeah, and when you brought up the depth of the footprints, I didn't even go down that road because of the fact that I just started to consider that this thing is 1,000 pounds and it would leave a giant footprint when it comes in that way. But, here's Mark describing something that's 9 feet tall, bounding through the woods. I don't even know what the approximate weight and size would be as far as thickness. He's saying 2 feet. I just don't know
2 feet thickness.
Yeah, I don't know about how deep the footprints would be on something that big. You almost think they might be deeper. That's one thing that Henry Franzoni said to me, is that, in studying these tracks, is that the tracks are usually not deep enough or too deep.
Okay. Yeah. Well, yeah, and there's this peculiar quality, like you were saying, like it's just like 90-degree, like right down, flat. Especially the ones you've casted out of Owl Moon Lab, the ones at the shop as well. They're just, I don't know, they're just a little too perfect, and impacted. And the weird thing is, you don't see any other detritus. Like, okay, yeah, there's a lack of detritus. So if I'm going to go out with a hydraulic press with a big footprint and set up some crazy contraption and set it to, 1,400 pounds and hit the button and it goes ka-chunk and goes down 2 feet, right? You're still going to see a lot of the stuff that was on top of the duff, the forest duff, like imprinted into that. But in a lot of these prints, we don't see that. Like it's almost like it's been removed.
Yeah, half of them have that. Half of them have that. The other half, you can see the needles flow down at a 90-degree angle and go flat where the footprint is. But sometimes it almost looks like the ground is left on the ball of the foot.
Yeah, totally. Like it's like like a 1,400-pound being that has fly tape on its feet, and just like and took like half of it. But yeah, so very peculiar qualities that I've been noting with these footprints.
Now let's go back to these psychics here, and I'm forgetting the name of their group. I should plug that. Maybe I'll look it up here while you're talking. But so they have a sighting 3 days before Mark's, roughly, less than three miles away, and it's a nighttime sighting. They hear brush popping around them. They look over, and I think less than 25 feet away, they see what, according to what her text says here, is I saw, effing Sasquatch's ass, and the thing standing there looking at us. And so they got a pretty good detailed sighting of it. And then they started to communicate after they went back up there with their spirit guides, trying to figure out what these things are and whether or not they can work with them in some way. And as they're looking around with Daryl, they find this giant quartz crystal left behind. So they take this photograph of this quartz, and it's as big as a man's hand, an average man's hand. It's probably a good 2 inches thick. And, it looks like it's right off of, Krypton. And it's just a giant shard of glass. And it's got a little bit of mud wedged down into it because it's kind of poking up out of the dirt. But you don't find quartz like that in the mountains. You find evidence of quartz infused in other rock. But a solo quartz like that, it's just not happening in Cottage Grove, not in the forest.
Impressive specimen that was.
Yeah, impressive. Mm-hmm. Now, they went on to look into this whole Black Witch's butter. And they asked about that to their spirit guides, and they went on to say that it was left for us. It does have those properties for healing upper respiratory stuff. Now, I was alluding to the pandemic here as far as it may be pointing to a question that we had regarding a cure, because that was a specific question we posed. And then we also asked on these little blocks of wood, which Mark was talking about on a stump, can we meet? Now, this Black Witch's butter is used for communicating with the other side. It puts you in an altered state, and it is also a Chinese herbal medicine for an upper respiratory thing. So they agreed, if we're to believe the spirit guides that Tara is communicating with, that yes, it is that, but they also went on to say that it's not from here, that it is a fungus. It does have those principles, but it is not an earthly fungus. Which is so it's from their world, and it was left here by something other than Bigfoot, and so that's what they proposed to me, and so now I give that information to you. Make of it what you will. But there was one person that went to a Chinese herbal store and bought a concoction of Black Witch's butter in powder form, which you can buy, and you need to consult your physician before you do any of this. And they had done a couple of other things, including sound therapy and light therapy. They were positive, I believe, that was confirmed for COVID-19. And they had a remarkable recovery after they did those three things: light therapy, sound therapy, and took this Chinese herbal medicine, Black Witch's butter. And I guess it was such a remarkable recovery that it was noteworthy. They got back to one of the people I'm working with about it. And so, as I said, consult your physician before you look into any of this stuff, certainly before you take it, because this stuff can kill you. But that was the last I'd heard about it. And the sample that was left there has never been taken into, a pharmaceutical person to be studied, or a mycologist, or a true fungi expert, which there's a lot of people that think they know everything about fungus. I found out quickly that there's a lot of people that say they know a lot about fungus, but they're not a mycologist. They don't have a degree in it. They haven't, gone that extra step. So I would encourage Daryl to find out exactly what he has in his hands. It could or could
Man, there's a lot to know about fungus. Holy cow. Oh, it's like quantum mechanics almost.
You probably have a beer on the shelf right now, a warm beer, like a fungus beer.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's the latest from there, and obviously Mark's got some thinking to do. The guy's on vacation now for the next 2.5 weeks, and he has ample opportunity as a guy into the subject matter to immerse himself in and nobody cast those tracks, for example. There they were on Saturday, and none of those tracks were cast, which I think is interesting that nobody did that. There they sit, and I think they're going to pull them out on Thursday. They're never as good as when you first find them. They degrade, even if the weather's, good. But, we'll see what happens, and there's always something new going on there. And
well, that was cool that Mark got on. That was great.
Yeah,
it was really good to hear his perspective and his kind of, I don't know, journey into the woo.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, going back to our original conversation here, James and Tony, let's do you mind going back there for a bit?
No.
Okay. So things unravel quickly on the phone, which is the way I like them. I like it when it goes left field all of a sudden, because I think that's the point of honesty there, and I don't really want to try to direct the conversation back to the subject matter of Bigfoot all the time. If it has to go other places, then let's go there. And that's exactly what happened in this one. And one of the things that came up was the idea of there being a doppelganger. James describes this emaciated, tall, slender, weird version of himself standing over the bed. Is that, I'm remembering the story correctly, aren't I?
I think I had my headphones off for that one.
Okay. All right.
It was like, talking about the doppelganger, and then I had to go do something. So
that's all right. No, I think
his the story. Yeah,
his girlfriend had seen this entity. It looked a lot like him. It had black, hollowed out eyes. It was an emaciated version of him, and. Right. The idea of a doppelganger is something I've never had to deal with before until today. Now, this is interesting. Today, I'm in the backyard working on this pond fountain thing that has the Dick Trickle, right? And so as I'm in the backyard working on this, Erin is out front waiting for me to get in the car with her and go on a hike. And so I think she's busy. She thinks I'm busy. And so she thinks I'm upstairs. Well, I'm in the back of the house with the door closed. And so she calls out, "Hey, are you almost ready?" And she hears a response. She hears my voice basically say, "Yeah, I'm almost ready," or something to that degree. And she kind of looks around because she doesn't see anybody. Well, she comes into the backyard, and there I am working in the fountain. And she said, whatever it was an uncanny, to your voice. It's, it must have been you. I told her it wasn't. I'm in the backyard trying to get, Dick Trickle to work a little harder for me. I didn't
even hear you ask the question.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So here we are having a conversation about an interview with a guy that has his own doppelganger.
Right.
So what's your opinion of doppelgangers?
Man, I just don't have enough data, enough experience. I have been I have had 3 people in my life that are extremely close to me. My mom, my ex-wife Claire, and one of my girlfriends, Julie. And all 3 of them had experiences with going up to a person that they absolutely 100% thought it was me, and basically to touch the person on the shoulder and say, "Hey, Alex," and have it turn around and just be like, not me. But prior to that, it was me. And these are people that have known me like most of my life. And when you see a person on the street, someone you've known for the most of your life, it's like, oh yeah, there's so-and-so, right? You don't mistake another person for that person. So I found like those three tales from three separate people in my life, to kind of, if it was just my mom and my ex-wife Claire, I'd be yeah. But then like 3 of them, and it's like, okay, well, there's something here. there's something here. As to what that something is, honestly, no idea. I know Tim Renner, I think, has had an interesting doppelganger experience, kind of along the same lines as me. But yeah, I really don't know, man. You know, as far as your experience earlier with Aaron asking a question and you calling out, you know, that's kind of a voice ganger, I guess. But it's not the full physical tone.
I'm gonna look that.
It's your voice, so maybe something's borrowing your voice there.
Right. It's I think it's a German word, right? It must be. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Double something. I don't know. You got the strange brow in your radio show, so German heritage. So you probably know the etymology there.
What about? Have you heard anybody else's voice, or had an experience like that where you've heard something out of place? I mean, I know in your story at Hope there was the sound of a train or a train crash of some kind. That was almost like we'll call that a train ganger.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, wow. Like the noises out there were absolutely like literally unbelievable. Like I couldn't believe I was hearing these noises where there was no physical activity. There was no lights. There was no trucks. There was no welding. There was no grinding. Like, you know, we can see the train tracks through that from the campsite. And I'm looking, and there's absolutely no lights. And yet there's these incredible frickin' sounds that are coming, like directly right after our crazy experience in the woods. And yeah, it did seem like something was borrowing those sounds and doing almost like an orchestra, just like sampling, like taking a mixed sample of all these sounds that had come through the area, you know, a train or some kind of crash, these you know, vehicles that would come up the road, the grinding noise, all of these. And it just like for that much sound activity to happen directly after we had our really weird experience, because that was like an hour and a half of sound activity, and like it was nuts, and it was so loud, and it wasn't just coming over from the train tracks, it was like happening like all around as well. So yeah, my going theory is that whatever was out there, I don't know if it's Sasquatch or little people or a witch or whatever was out there was actually borrowing these sounds to basically play for us.
Right, yeah. I'm queuing up something here. 1 second. Let me play an example of what Alex and I are trying to say. So back at the Al Moon Lab, this is one of the sounds that we kind of found late in the game. In fact, it's in an area where Mark had his sighting. This was a moment where I was up interviewing Daryl about running into orbs in the woods with the neighbor. And so we did a recreation of this around 9 or 10 o'clock at night. I got my interview with the neighbor and Daryl about their encounter. I think it was about a 3-hour encounter with orbs and footfall and heavy stench. And so they're pretty shaken up about it. They're both bouncing accurate details back and forth. And then after I left, I get a phone call from Daryl saying something weird's turned up on my phone. And it has no time stamp. It has no date stamp. It's a video. It's about 12 seconds long. And I have no idea who these people are or what they're saying. And so let me play that. Oh, I hear your candy wrapper again. There's that pesky candy wrapper.
What?
There, you're eating a Twix. Okay, I'm going to play this sound, and this is an idea. I mean, this goes into the doppelganger theory. That's something you use the word borrow. I think that's a good way for describing what you're about to hear. You're going to hear Daryl's voice speak another language. It's not a language I know of, and it's not Daryl because he doesn't know another language. And then you're going to hear this woman who sounds like she's on a synthesizer, and then you're going to hear somebody chewing. It's a lot to take in. So let me play you a little bit of this doppelganger voice sharing thing. Hit this. Okay, let's do this 1 second here. Turn that on. Play this. Cancel. All right, here we go. Let's see if it'll play. Okay.
So, what's going to happen now when they're out there? They gave my son. So, what's going to happen now when they're out there? They gave my son. So, what's going to happen now when they're out there? They gave my son.
Okay, so the smacking of lips isn't Alex eating his Twix bar. Just let's get that part out of the way. That's part of the weirdness that was coming in auditorily. It sounds like Daryl eating a snack and he left his phone on. However, this is a video with no time or date stamp and a black screen. Now that voice is a doppelganger of Daryl's voice. There's no other way to say it. And after you've met Daryl a couple times now via Skype, would you agree that sounds like him?
Totally.
Yeah. Very bizarre.
And
so
I have a very good ear for like voices and sounds as well. So I would say that is like definitely a borrowed Daryl's voice. But it also sounds like the other, like the female voice is like a borrowed voice as well.
Yeah, but English.
Yeah,
right.
but there's this like mixed quality to it.
Yes,
like sampled. Like, oh, I'm gonna take a little bit from here and a little bit from there, and like put it into this like, because it's very like, what you mean something more. So
right.
Yeah.
Now, what the interesting thing about what the woman's saying here is that she's acknowledging. This is a little bit of a leap, but is almost an acknowledgement of the fact that there's going to be somebody coming out here and what is going to happen when they come out here. And it's a female's voice, which I think is really interesting. I mean, the fact is that we have mysterious women on tape from the Al Moon Lab that we've never got it deciphered. They're not speaking English like she is. I have no idea whose voice that is. I think I know that that's Daryl's voice, but that's certainly an unknown language, and it has this synthesized quality to it as it tunes in and tunes out of view.
It definitely does. Like at one point, it almost sounds like it was reversed, like
yes.
But there's but that is definitely English. Like what that woman is saying is like, what's going to happen now that they're gone?
Yeah, close enough. Okay, so let's get to the part here of Santeria. I didn't expect James to be talking about a moment where he had to kind of do battle with the devil, for lack of a better word. I mean, what he was describing was basically a Grim Reaper type it reminded me of the ring race from Lord of the Rings. Very similar in nature. In fact, he even described how these kind of wisped away at one point. There was this, he said it like a balloon getting popped, and it just kind of fizzled. Right. And that's very ring wraithy, how those guys would disappear. Yeah. So that was an impressive moment there. And, he's a Christian guy. He called upon Christ to basically do battle with the angelic forces, and it worked. Saw a ball of light and dashed right through it like a, garlic to a vampire, and took care of business. Totally.
Well, belief is, I feel like the strongest power, against these shadow, beings or forces. Whatever you do believe in, if you do believe it, then if you do believe in something, then call on that as your power. And I've had that before.
Yeah, and he mentions that too. He talks about the Native Americans basically telling him, "You don't have to worry about skinwalkers because you don't believe."
Yeah,
this.
because you don't believe in them.
Yeah. Faith had its own power.
Like this isn't. If you don't believe in this, so you don't have to worry about it. But we certainly, we certainly do. So we have to worry about this and take the proper precautions.
Yeah, now I've never had to deal with somebody that was a priest in Santeria. In fact, the craziest ever got for me as far as, dealing with someone who actually practices magic like that was the Marquinian guy that was the professor Satanist down in Eugene.
Right.
And, he had his own crazy experiences like that. Have you ever had to unfriend somebody, Alex, based upon the fact that
Yeah, I definitely did in the past year, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, I won't go into it too much. It's kind of like how James was saying. You want to be careful when you say the name of these things. So I don't like to say this guy's name anymore because
right, it has its own power.
Yeah. I just I don't. Yeah. I unfriended him. I just left it all behind. It was just too much, and I'm just like, no, man, you don't have good intentions. You've got way too big of an ego. You're a massive narcissist. You're like almost bordering on cult mentality, personality here. With bringing all these people into your fold, and I'm just like, I don't want any part of this anymore. So yeah, so had to basically cut that cord, essentially. Yeah.
Right, literally. Well, and that's another way to do it. That's one of the rituals, is a cord cutting ceremony where you go through the steps ritualistically to cut the cord. We have one individual like that that we've both had to do that with, Aaron and I, and it's kind of painful because you see the potential. Well, it is painful.
Oh my God! Yeah.
You know the potential, and it's just like, now, why does it have to be so filled with you all the time? I mean, it's not like, this is not a typical friendship that's just gone awry because someone's being a douche. This is literally like these people are choosing darkness, and they think that they're the light, and they're actively.
Oh my God! Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
They're really into revenge, and they let you know it.
Oh fuck
yeah! And they they brag about how they can basically put spells on people. That's the only way to tell you. They brag about the fact that they do evil magic, that they're into dark magic, and that's, you just cannot allow them to persuade you back in their life, because they're really good about putting guilt on you for basically either how they've turned out, the fact that they've got bad luck, and it's all this weird manipulation to basically
manipulation.
back in your world.
Holy cow! Yeah. It was interesting because this guy just out of the blue. I haven't spoken to him since I cut the cord, and he happened to phone me like, what was that, 2 weeks ago? Just like, and everything he was saying was just like, oh man, I could see through all of what you're saying. He's trying to like pump himself up. Oh, I'm doing so good, blah blah blah, I'm on the right path, blah blah blah. We're just like, no, you're not, dude. You're just, I don't know what angle you're playing here or what game you are trying to play, but there's a reason you called me, and it wasn't to just check up on your buddy. No. So I cut that phone call pretty short. Yeah.
In fact, I even have the feeling, just mentioning the story of this other person, that just in mentioning who they could potentially be, just like you would. I don't mean to be this dark, but in the same way you would mention a demon or a skinwalker, that name, their spidey senses start to tingle, and then all of a sudden you'll get a text message or you'll get something out of the blue.
Definitely. Going back to one of my experiences, oh wow, it was a 15-year-long experience that I had with my ex, Claire, and we multiple times met this entity. It was energetic entity, absolutely like, holy crap, this is like super powerful, super, like, had such a incredible presence to it. And this wasn't just like at one particular location. This was like at the very tip of the south of the island where we first lived, and then we moved and it followed us. Anyways, so I after Claire and I split up, I was doing some work and I was like, oh yeah, I'm curious about this entity, you know, what was that? So I ended up doing some inner journey work and going to meet this entity and ask it some questions, and I did get its name. So a lot of other stuff happened after that, but as soon as I got its name, I emailed Claire. I was like, hey, yeah, I did this work. I actually learned the thing's name. And she's like, no, don't even tell it to me. I don't want to hear it. And right when she said that, I was like, oh, she doesn't want to know the name because she doesn't want to even think the name, because even thinking the name would call this thing back to her.
Right, that's heavy.
Yeah, no, that was a very, very, very heavy experience, especially at the end there. You know, that might be a tale for another time, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, in closing, that was worth revisiting. I listened to the podcast 3 times now. James and Tony, if you haven't had a chance to check it out, Into the Tree is the episode. Definitely worth a listen. Also, I want to thank Mark Parker for calling in with his fresh encounter from the Al Moon Lab proper. And also a plug for a product here. I sent you an image of the video quality from an item called Psionics. It's color night vision. It's something I'm definitely thinking about eventually getting myself a brilliant toy, and the quality that you can get for dropping about $500 is pretty incredible. So if you don't have night vision, you can still go outside and see some really incredible stuff in the sky. I think night vision, I know night vision helps you see in a different spectrum of light where you can see UFOs for certain, and probably orbs as well. But there is no reason that you shouldn't go out tonight or this morning to look for Elon Musk Starlink, which if you have not seen the Starlink cruise across the sky, it's very weird.
Oh, I woke up at 4:30 this morning and stepped outside and there it was. I was like, oh, what the? Okay. Yeah, it's something totally different. Totally different.
Yeah, and I don't know how I feel about it, because I feel like it's Earth litter or cosmic litter. And the idea behind it is they're going to launch a whole bunch more of these. And it's going to...
Like a big whack more of those, yeah.
Right, yeah, it'll be traffic in the sky all night long. And if you're into astronomy, this is really going to mess up your game.
Yeah, I mean, he does say that they're just in like a lower orbit now, and they like just for testing, and they'll actually go into a higher orbit and will be less visible. But with the amount of like satellites that he's talking about, that's a lot of litter. That's a lot of stuff up there. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, you can look up the schedule for when it's flying over your neck of the woods. It's not a UFO, but man, it's pretty interesting as far as just stargazing. So check out Starlink. You can find that somewhere on Google for your own neck of the woods. Hey, we'll do it again next month, bro. And as always,
sounds good, man.
Good to have you on Ales and Tales once more. And of course, we'll be
Wonderful.
talking on and off between now and then, of course. And have a good night, dude.
All right, you too.
All right, thanks again to Mark Parker for calling in and Alex for chiming in all the way from Quadra Island up in Canada. Don't forget, again, that's coming up this week, April 18th and 19th. Go to Strange Brow Radio, click on Quarantine Webinars, and there are two options. 18th, Mystery of the Elongated Skulls, and I guess I should say Mysteries of the Elongated Skulls. Also, check out the Quantum Bigfoot Language on the 19th. All those are on there. Check them out. I think $6.99 is the price for Quantum Bigfoot. Donation for Marcia K. Moore and Brian Forrester on the Mystery of the Elongated Skulls, and the PayPal information is on that as well. We're working on new ones coming up here for the end of April, beginning of May. I'll let you know more about that as we go along. That's it. Everyone, what can I say? We're all kind of stuck in this situation. One big, happy, quarantine, Purelled, slightly rashy family. So, without going into all the messy details about our own issues here, you all take care of yourself. And as always, 1, 2, 3, I will see you in the trees.